Good everyone. I have the legend Will Flemming and his
Oof.
little. What is your figurine? It's a mind blowing figurine.
That's right. That's right. A fella called Zach down in Wellington. No, not Wellington. Christchurch. He's an artist, and he designed that little mind blowing guy for me. This little guy, for those listening won't know what I'm talking about. But I got a little piece of artwork. It's Imagine Wilson from the Castaway films, except it's not a volleyball. It's a little man with a denim jacket and a mind blowing head like the emoji. And I actually think of him, this little guy, like Wilson. Like because Wilson's an important character in Castaway. It kind of keeps Tom Hanks together, you know.
Mm.
And I think we kind of laugh at the idea of Wilson and Wilson. It's like a meme, but actually, it's like, man, when it's all stripped away, you need your Wilson. And so that's my little Wilson.
We're in that moment right now. What's the date today? It's
Yeah,
19th of
no,
April.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Mi-
Well,
Middle of
that's right.
middle of
We've,
COVID, isolated.
yeah.
We're not quite on deserted islands. Like you've got your family there. I'm living in a house with two friends.
Mm.
Yeah, but finding your Wilsons. What other Wilsons have you been finding, man?
Dude, I mean, just to take a step back, it feels like we've come from a deserted island and we've found, because that's what normal life is like, it's very surface. You might as well be in your own, like, I think the true bubble is the modern society, and this isolation that we have, the fact that you can block people out of your life and you'll do it willingly is an interesting prospect. I wonder what the statistics would say on kind of blocking if people are still doing that online, because this digital portal that we have with each other, man, it's like it's the only way that we catch up, you
Yeah.
know? And I think about that all the time. You're one of the last people I hugged in the real world. We caught up for a podcast and I never released it because we're talking in this different capacity, kind of pre-COVID, right? And I will release it, but I want it to be like a snapshot in time of when people still hugged and when people caught up in person. And so it's a very interesting time, bro. So you asked me, Wilsons, what else are my Wilsons? Well, I will say that podcasting has been a huge help for me to process this. And when I say this, I guess I mean this the idea of change. I don't think we all really understand what the change is
Mm.
because you can't fathom it, right? If we don't get to travel anymore, if we don't get to really see people anymore, if our instinct isn't to say hello and shake hands anymore, then we're not realizing that yet. We're not realizing exactly what that means. Uh, so the bubbles, not bubbles, I keep thinking about bubbles. I popped my bubble. But the Wilsons are, this digital soul that the internet has given us now. It used to be a place to troll. And at least, I mean, I'm pretty obviously metaphorical guy and like to see the light in things. But it's awesome that we finally seem to have a reason for the internet,
Oh
you
yeah.
know? And if we didn't have it, well, that's a thought experiment too. What would we be doing if this was kind of dial-up days and you couldn't just log on? What would we be doing in lockdown? I guess Sky TV would still be really important. Kind of phone calls would be really important. But now we get to stream in. We even get to record our chats, and I just think it's a unique learning time, right, for us to learn how to be by ourselves a little bit for an extended period of time, and just to work out. Like, I don't know how you feel, bro, but I don't want it to go back to how it was. What's your
Uh,
take on that?
no way, mate. When you were just speaking there as well, I was like, holy fuck! I think you were one of the last persons that I gave um, a handshake, bring it in for a hug
Mm,
type
mm,
interaction with, and yeah, then you're talking about we've found the use for the internet. Like my daughter's up in Pukekohe, and I'm so glad that there's the capacity for Messenger to do a video FaceTime thing. This evening I just sort of watched her eat an ice cream and draw some pictures and dance around the lounge being a 2-year-old ballerina. It's like, God, I'll be going crazy right now if I wasn't able to do that, and all I could do was have a muffled, hello down the phone. Whereas it can just be an observation. It can just be a shared energy.
It also goes to show how adaptable we are, right? Like we would obviously be all right.
Yeah.
Because we would only know what's possible then. Like maybe this conversation drives more infrastructure where we, introduce holograms or something like that. And then we'll never be able to realize what it was like when you could only digitally kind of link up. And, I often sometimes get a bit of a look back into the past. So my dad's 71, I think, 71, 72. And like he is very not against, but he opts out of technology.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember like kind of 10 years ago, I was like, hey, Dad, I'll set your phone up and I'll get you we could text message each other. And he's like, oh, no, I called Vodafone and they removed the text messaging service from my phone. And I thought about it for like a week and I was like, they can't do that, Dad. But he thought he'd just tell me that so that I wouldn't want to text with him. He said, I've got it removed. And he's just one of those guys. And I said to him a couple of years ago, I'm like, do you ever get worried that you'll not be part of something online or, catching up with what I do? And he says, not at all. At the time I was talking to him, he was applying, he retired, but he was applying for like a bit of extra dough doing courier driver. And he went for the job and they said, what's your mobile? And he said, I don't have one. And they said, what's your email? He said, I don't have one. And they said, Mr. Flemming, how will we contact you? And he said, you can write me a letter. That's hilarious. And it still sits with me because he's actually right. You still could write people a letter. So we just want speed, eh? We want, like me and you can negotiate times right up until the moment. But there was a time, and there may be there may be an argument that's also what's kind of screwing with us is this immediacy, the fact that there was a time in history where, well, I don't know, think about it, when you had to like send the letter on the boat or send the note on the pigeon or however you did it, it wasn't immediate. And this immediacy, because I always kind of take things that seem really logical, and I posted about it today. The fact that we say so many things, bro, and sometimes we don't know the ramifications of it. Sometimes we don't know what that really means. Like when the Prime Minister said, okay, we're going to be in this isolation in your bubble. And remember, everyone was kind of leading up to what they would do before the 11:59. I mean, if we don't get to see people for another, let's just say, ages, we would have made different decisions back when the bubble was closing. But we're just weird, we kind of don't really see the bigger picture, and then we're immediately confronted with the picture because you can Skype and Zoom and portal into these different conversations. But I think it makes sense to think that we're built for a bit of a slower pace, which probably explains why there is a feeling of, I wouldn't say happiness, but definitely a stronger meaning to this moment. Things are slowed right down. There's less options. Normally we would call it a human rights. You can't tell me to stay at home. America's going through this right now, and actually collectively, I think we're breathing a sigh of relief. The fact that, oh man, I just got to stay home. Just got to do my bit. Quite powerful, There's just the metaphor of if you staying home might do your bit. And I hope, man, I cross my fingers that might give us a permission. Maybe I have this idea that once a year humans might stay home for 1 week and we'll just let the rest of the world do its thing. It's very much about us, bro?
Yeah. No, it's funny you're saying about writing the letter. Even growing up, just bloody going around to people's houses, unannounced.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's too
like,
right.
just showing up. Are you home? Oh yeah, come in. We're
Yeah.
home. Oh, they're not home. Oh, I'll move on. Carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you didn't have that text. Are you home?
Mm.
What are you doing? Are you home? Can we
Yeah.
come around? In an hour and a half, I've got this on. Oh, okay, don't worry about it. Whereas now, man, we're hankering for that. And then also you said about letters. I'm so lucky. Only one part of my family, but in my mother's dad's side of the family, um, when they came out from Ireland, they diaried and wrote letters back.
Wow.
And then my great grandfather, when he went to the First World War, did the same. He'd just met his wife, um, and yeah, so he diaried and wrote letters back to New Zealand. So we have this amazing um, categorized category of events from these two people in our heritage, and it's just the most amazing thing to transpose yourself into a different time. Now it's only 100 and 200 years ago. Beyond that we know basically nothing, but to be able to get a small insight into what that is. And when we get into what you've been doing with Wim Hof, I'll delve a little bit into the ad hoc I've got from that history. But yeah, this storytelling and time to express and time to put pen to paper. Even myself, I'd had since, well, when I really think about it, a whole year I've been wanting to write an article for our publication, and that was sort of, I got a kick in the ass to write it in January. Like, here's the case of why you need to write about this type 1 diabetes management, and it's taken me until now to sit down and pound it out on my laptop, and I do go into this flow state, and it just comes out of me. But again, I just needed that little slowdown to get it out, and I sent it in, and straight away they wrote back like, "Brilliant! It'll be in the magazine next month." I was like,
There we go.
"Awesome!"
Isn't it scary that there is another scenario where life doesn't slow down for you,
Yeah,
and then we crash one day and we think, what the hell happened there? And so that's the actual tricky bit of it, is sometimes the answers aren't available from your view.
oh yeah, yeah,
And I this is a bit embarrassing, but at the moment my 2-year-old, well, I'm trying to encourage her to get into the movie Moana, because
yeah.
it's like my favorite film at the moment. And it's really embarrassing because I want to try and make her watch it so I can watch it, and um actually because I look at it through the metaphors in it, and I know that Disney and the corporate, but I love, let's take it from its most positive point of view that it could be. Let's just say that the story is reminding us on certain things. And obviously if you haven't seen it, it's a tale of well, probably go see it or read up. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a moment where she has to deliver something back, kind of figuratively, like Lord of the Rings, take the
Hero's
missing
journey,
piece.
classic hero's journey, isn't
Exactly.
it? Yeah.
But she couldn't see where she needed to take it, or the path only revealed itself when she was at a really high point, So the tricky bit for me is, well, when do you look close and when do you look far? And really that's I think part of the balance of this thing. I mean, that's where trying to incorporate this Wim Hof breathing and these cold showers is trying to get the insight of, we say like mindfulness and to bring you into the now. But there's always a missing bit for me, bro, which is like, why? Why not just be how I am? Why do I need to rip myself into the now? And I think it is for that view, for that, to see something that you might be missing. But then again, there's this giant view, which, the COVID stuff is unraveling for us, which is actually reminding us, like, dude, slow down. Because we do say it. We say it in life, in your holidays, relax. But we never relax. We just go on holiday. Effectively, we just increase our whatever because we've got time away from the grind, right? But I don't know, man. That's a brave person to sit down and say, all right, I'm going to strategize this of how to be the best I can be. Like that's what COVID is. I've tried to look at COVID as just a real metaphorical that the virus attacks effectively your vulnerability. It's not a monster. It just attacks the areas you're weak. So it kind of is a monster, because that's what a monster would do. So what's your best defense? Well, try to have less vulnerability. And then when you look at that, that's where it unravels, because it's a never ending story, Is it your mental vulnerabilities, your physical vulnerabilities? I mean, the truth probably is it's both. So then you say to yourself, okay, I need to be mentally and physically stronger. So you've opened up another chasm of a billion things to work on. And I really like those things that just, I'll take breathing, for example. There's many things that's happening in that when I'm doing it that I know are happening, but I don't need to actually know they're happening. I just need to enact them, or the cold. As far as I know, jumping under the cold shower or, jumping in the cold water ignites something that's built inside us. That's as far as I need to know. So I like that. And I want more of those things. I kind of don't need to know much more than in terms of neuro-linguistic programming. When you kind of talk yourself down, you're also hypnotizing yourself. So you need to reframe it. I had a guy on my podcast, and it's coming out soon, but I suggest you get him on yours, called Dave Neath. He's a mental skills coach. And basically after the session wrapped, I said, man, I want to learn from you. I want to pay you to train me, not to be a mental skills coach, but I want to understand when I'm unlocking something either through my own conversations and podcasting, I want to know how I'm doing that and why I'm doing that, not just that I'm doing it, because I call it the mind-blowing moment, right? It's that human moment we share. And I thought, man, that would be so nice to add on to that, exactly what's happening there. When we say where there's a synergy or something like that, it'd be also nice to know that you can create that, just like you do with the cold shower. So I mean, there's plenty of things in that, bro, but definitely, I don't know what the final kind of goal is, but I guess it's to have as many tools to help you see from a mixture of, I don't know, zoomed right up to extreme wide, and I think really one of the main ones is what we're doing here, the talking stuff. I think that might be the bedrock of how we're built, so it's like, you have all these other little toolkits, like the I guess we're experimenting like with long form content, short form content, long letters, essays, short little clickbait titles. I mean, the answers are there. It's just sucks because you have to work at trying to decipher them. And I'd argue that most times you lose, because even if you, well, I think that, bro, because even if you know what you should do, that doesn't mean you're going to do it. Just because you know it. Like I sat on the Wim Hof breathing method for about 4 years without having done it, and I can't tell you why. I the best I can get to you today is I told myself the wrong story in my head, and I don't even know what that means. It's like I just wanted the flaming fire, but I couldn't find that tinder, to start the flame. And I actually spoke to a couple guys about Wim Hof. So there's a guy in New Zealand called Jason Sutty, who's a 6-time kickboxing world champion, and he's the Wim Hof guy here, along with Nigel. There's a couple official instructors, and they go across to Amsterdam. And
what's his name? Santos or something like that.
Beach, is it?
Yeah, Nigel Beach, absolutely. And we're going
Jason Sutty.
We're going to have a good yarn some point. What is the other guy's name? Sandro is the other fella. Sandro Oh, she was. I'm sorry, Sandra. Tiara Morta, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Forward me the
um,
link. We'll do another podcast.
yeah,
And I spoke to Jason, and I spoke to kind of Wim's German counterpart, a fella called Matthias Whitford. He's a psychologist, but he leads up the German kind of side.
yeah.
And at the end of those conversations, the one question I had for them is, why did it take me 4 years to do this? Right? You've told me the benefits. You've told me the awesomeness. You've actually showed me how to do it. When you get the ear of Wim, please ask him, what's that spark in? What's that? What is it in us? We know that we shouldn't smoke. We know we shouldn't drink as much. All of those things. Yet you find yourself looking third person in, right? And you're taking that next swig, or you do it when you're being grumpy and shitty. You look at yourself and you're like, I know I shouldn't be doing this right now.
Mm.
And I understand how to use those things like meditation and that to try and train yourself to catch it. But gosh, it's hard in the moment, like negative thoughts, and how
Yeah.
do you not let them in, and when is it appropriate to let them in? Because you don't want to be that guy either that never has, like Trump, never has negative thoughts about himself, and that serves him, I guess. But you're vulnerable in other ways because you're not aware how people will look at you
Mm.
and register you. And so, look, bro, it's gone deep very quick, but it's a real tricky business, eh? It's
Yeah.
tricky and simple, and that's the tension I find myself in. What did I say? Something the other day, something like the simple complexity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Everything is there's a simple solution, but it's not easy. You were saying about
Yeah.
meditation and doing the right thing. It's like the most ideal process for me in the evening would be around 8:30. Go have that shower. Start off with cold, finish it with cold. Come into bed, lamb the Shakti mat, put on some music to meditate to. Do that for around 45 minutes. Get the Shakti mat out of bed, go to sleep. And I think it speaks to the lack of connection right now. I'm finding myself, I've been doing it some nights, but I've been finding myself stuck in conversations across medias. And, the other person might be busy, and that's the trouble with medias through those sort of text conversations is the other person can go do something. The other person can put the phone down. The other person can go into a meal. The other person can be watching a film. The other person can be going and doing their meditation. But you're waiting for that little dopamine kick of the message back, and you end up not fulfilling, and you end up putting the thing you should do to, again, it goes with that broader view versus internal view. The thing that you should do for yourself is have this amazing sleep hygiene and have a fantastic night's sleep and wake up with or before your alarm. And in my case, wake up feeling good, do the Wim Hof breath, get up, have my day. They're all interconnected, but you're right. It's the simple complexities. One little thing disrupts the other, which disrupts the other, and it's that's where from the psychology perspective, and what are you brainwashing yourself with? What are you being harsh about yourself? And I spoke about this with Andy Ross a couple of times ago. We're talking about how there's that judge in your head, and maybe the judge that we need right now is that lenient judge, that judge that gives you the telling off, but then says, hey, you've got no previous record. You're young, you've got your whole life ahead of you. We kept you in the cells for 2 nights. You've served your time. You've come through this process. You've been embarrassed. Your name's in the paper for appearing in court. Go on and be better. Maybe that's the judge you need to be. And the psychotherapy work I did when I finished uni, that was it. It was basically, mate, you don't have a mental illness, but you're being too hard on yourself. Your self-esteem's rock bottom. Have that conversation with yourself like you were giving advice to somebody else. If somebody else was telling you what you're telling yourself, you'd say, mate, go easy on yourself. Calm down. Everything's okay.
Mm.
Here are all the great things you're doing. Carry on and move forward. That's what I spoke about at the end of our Queen's episode, is that taking that rugby mentality of move forward,
Mm.
take that into real life.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you can draw on so many aspects of when you're doing well and bring those into hard times.
Yeah, it's interesting, It's interesting the fact that you've got that we are having this conversation with ourselves. That's a weird idea, because most of us would say, well, we're pretty believe in reality and this and that, but what's happening there?
Yeah.
When you're talking to yourself as if you should be talking to someone else, what's going on?
What's
Because,
consciousness? What is consciousness?
yeah,
Who's that conversation with? Is it you?
why?
Is it
And
is it you or someone else?
yeah, because it feels like someone else, right?
Yeah.
Because you're saying talk to yourself like you would be talking to someone else, and like that just sits in my mind. I'm like, whoa, what does that mean? What is that? I mean, I get it logically and practically, but I still think it's weird that we have to do that. That
Yeah.
that 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 it is our job to do that. And even you mentioned mental illness. I've been thinking about like things like mental health, mental illness. I think I posted on Instagram today, like I had this idea that um well, it's all of these like things we're saying, but it's like we assume everyone gets it. And I
Mm.
think we're all too scared to say, I don't get it. Like when we say to society, it's okay not to be okay during COVID, I don't
Yeah.
really know what that means.
Yeah.
You're not really explaining what that means. Are you saying to me it's okay not to be okay because of the lack of human connection? Okay, cool. If that's the deal, tell me that, because I don't know what you mean, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the same when people say find balance in your life. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Because balance is hard. We talk about it like being okay is even achievable, you
Yeah.
know?
It's so
And
flippant, eh? And it was funny how Andy was saying he's talking to a psychologist friend that all these people that have been suffering anxiety all of a sudden are feeling normal all of a sudden, because not everyone else, but a lot of other people were coming on with all of a sudden they're finding what the heck anxiety means. And I
Mhm.
still don't know what the heck. I know I get it, but I don't. Like you said, I don't know. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know why someone can't get off that internal treadmill and just go, "Hey, hang on a second. This is irrational. I'm okay." It all took twice, isn't it? I am okay. Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah.
they're saying? You are actually okay. It's okay. You are
Well,
okay. I don't know.
well, I mean, they should just try and work out different scenarios to, we call it, you can articulate yourself. That's what happens in these long form chats, right? You take an idea and you start articulating it. It breeds more ideas. But we've now kind of reached a point, I think, where the kind of 140 characters or the 260 characters that you can post with
Oh, yeah.
is now accepted in even communication. So I just think it's like you've got to be really careful when you put out those things, because logically we know what it means, but I don't think our consciousness knows what it means. I think I don't know if I told you maybe in our last podcast, but I'd been dabbling with hypnosis. And the big thing about hypnotizing someone is when you get into a state of consciousness where you're talking to a different version of whoever it is in the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, you're talking to someone who's kind of at a level of a 4-year-old, right?
Mm,
So you have to explain it. And I think when they're throwing that stuff out, our conscious mind gets it, but our subconscious, I believe, is just like totally overwhelmed.
mm,
Like we're saying to that 4-year-old, it's okay not to be okay. Like, well, would we say that to a 4-year-old? When we say any of the buzz things that we talk about, you know,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
find balance in your life. That would mean nothing to a 4-year-old. And I think it means nothing to us. So I think we understand it, we register it, but I think it means nothing. So one of the things I was thinking about today with mental health, for example, is was trying to think about how to relate it to physical health, because we can do that. We can think about ourselves at the gym. But I was thinking about this word hygiene, which has been brought up a lot with COVID. And if you wouldn't say to someone, we would like you to have, like, we wouldn't say, Ryan, we want you to have healthy hands, you know, but you would say, we want you to have a healthy mindset. And I think that's where the problem is. We might say, we need you to wash your hands so you can have clean hands. And you would understand that. That's kind of a direction. So I was thinking about it, and it just sounds really weird, but you could say mental hygiene could be a way to say mental health, because that the hygiene part suggests cleaning. So then the question should be, well, how would I clean my mind? And that is, I think, what we're dabbling with, the breathing and the showering, and the meditation. It's literally giving us a way like that. For me, that I can hear my child coming, so I might have to say good night, but I think we keep recording and you
Yeah.
pad out the audience. Coming. Okay, 2 secs.
This is the reality.
Okay. Sorry, team. Dad duties. But there's no real difference in information. We do want the same thing. It's just, if you think about, you have to clean your mind, then you have direction to find tools to do that, and maybe thinking about it like, then you can think about it like a computer where your hard drive is full. That makes sense in our brain, like there's a capacity there, and we're running too many operating systems. So you got to cache it. Then the challenge is, how do you cache it? And I think that's not an easy answer to solve, but I definitely think it's a better place to start from than just have a healthy mind, so I really am trying to extract through my conversations and my thinking just like ways we can better deal with the stuff, man, because I that's the world I don't want to go back to. I don't like marketing teams coming up with buzzwords,
Yeah.
I don't like being spoken to in clickbait form, because I know it serves its purpose. It maybe should inspire at its giant level, but I think the problem is we need more. Maybe what we're feeling, maybe the problem we're having is because no one said that it's weird if you don't have human connection. It's weird. It's not good for us. We talk about it when we say, don't be that dude in your mother's basement on your computer. We talk about that. We talk about it like it's a bad example. And I mean, because there's the antisocial part, right? We know it's not good for us. So I think it's good that the internet's lit alive to, have these conversations. But I think that's what it's okay not to be okay means. Be, you know, because you're being ripped away from what's actually true to us is we didn't realize it, or we didn't know how important it was. My industry is creative stuff, right? So I make a lot of videos for people. I do a lot of editing and that, and I'm struggling because I didn't anticipate the fact that when I can't see you face to face, I can extract information creatively. So when I go and make it for you, I've kind of like used an algorithm based on our chat, but I realized that doesn't translate digitally, and it doesn't translate written as well. So I'm having to find drastic strategies to help me with that. I'm even finding by the time I make a change and deliver it back, that there's a moment past and that moment means something different in the creative space, So what do we do about that? Well, I don't know. I guess there's limited options here. If you are kind of dealing with it, that's probably a good thing. And we're all dealing with something. So, that's a nice thought that we're all dealing with something. But definitely, like, I have found myself not feeling okay. But again, it's like, what? Well, to what level, right? Because when you say to someone, I'm not feeling okay, they're like, are you okay? Do you need someone to talk to? You know, it's like,
I'm talking to you, bro.
yeah, I don't know. I haven't. Write me a letter. Maybe that should be our answer. Eh? I'll write you a letter when I when I kind of process this. Yeah, we're complicated beasts, all right. And yeah, man, it's going to be so interesting to see what happens with all this.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
saw a post yesterday that's like, in that situation where the person comes to you and says, "I'm not okay," and then we sort of do the egotistical thing and blow up their ego. Maybe we also need the courage to say, "Hey, look, this is massive. I hear what you're saying. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. I can hear that you're not dealing well. All I can do for you, sorry, is be a here's support. I can give you a hug, maybe. I don't know. I can listen to you talk if you want to talk, but I can't give you answers. I don't have those skills. We need to come up with some action, and it's the same with like. I feel like the catch cry slogan type stuff sweeps it under the rug. It's kind of like a token gesture that, hey, we're doing something about it. Like we're still doing nothing about it. You know, when you go and look in, you know, well, okay, so I can't do anything about it. You're coming to me because you don't know what to do. You're struggling. And then we go and look up, well, what can we do? And there's just all these barriers. There's the ability to reach help either costs you a shit ton of money, or is a one size fits all solution. And when we're not talking about one size and it doesn't fit all. That's why we have a spectrum of mental hygiene. I think that's great. I think that's a great term. We have a spectrum of mental hygiene. So why is the solution a slogan to create this facade that we're doing something? And then if you do have the courage to take some action, or you do meet that people that says, that's honest enough and courageous enough to say, I can't help you. I can support you, but I can't help you. Let's go see what we can do. And then to come up with a solution that, you know, not many people want to go down, and that's seeing a GP and getting a medication that may or may not work, and the follow-up around that's pretty bloody weak. Or to then, you know, potentially put yourself at financial difficulty, which is not going to help your stress. Like, it's just this whirlwind of things. It's like, and maybe it's just so multifactorial. There's so many influences into why we have this poor mental state in this country. Why guys just want to, you know, we have a bad enough time trying to explain ourselves as it is. We're not given the space to explore. We're not given the tools growing up to go, you know, just slow down a moment. What is your body doing? Now try to find out why that is. When we're given this persona that we are men, we have the answer, we should be able to fix this thing straight away. And when it's ourselves, and we don't want to feel vulnerable, we don't want to feel like useless, it's no surprise that so many men just go, well, fuck this. I'm out of here. I can't do this. There's so much shame around this. Whereas, you know, this is sweeping generalizations, but when the feminine side of things have that ability to talk, have that group, that chatter group, that open dialogue, that just keep talking until it comes out mentality, that then they, you know, find that support in the peer group, or they find the courage to then at least take another step. Now, I'm sure that there are plenty of females out there that are also then hit the brick wall of the system that we're under. But yeah, it's a mindfuck, and I'm so glad that I have been exposed to hard things that don't matter, that have given me tools that allow me to pivot, to reframe, to apply gratitude, to blow my mind away with the likes of the Wim Hof method, or cold showers, or whatever.
That's it. 100%.
That I'm okay, to go back
Mm.
to that slogan. But I know there's so many people that aren't.
Yeah. That's exactly what the slogan should say. Everything you just said in that 2-minute piece, right? And I think if it can't be explained like that, then don't post it. Then don't say it. Because, and look, I mean to myself too, we're constantly filtering things down, and at a certain point, you just have to realize that it doesn't make sense anymore. And if it doesn't make sense, you can't do anything with that. That's that same point about being locked away from trying to actively not doing the Wim Hof method. I don't know why that was. And there's something in there. There is a reason. I didn't know what it was. But this area of life now, COVID has prompted that because of my fear of, not my fear, but my willingness to be less vulnerable, you know, and I now have a reason. I now have a way in to do something that might benefit me. And look, you're saying a lot of awesome things in that I wanted to bloody pick apart because it just makes sense. It makes sense that, well, we can't give people a hug. We don't know the ramifications of that yet. That sucked. It sucked. No, it doesn't suck. It fixed a lot of things.
Mm.
A hug fixed a lot of things. Come here, and we'll hug it out. And we can't do that, and we should anticipate that there will be negative things from that. So, but one way I've thought about it that might make it a bit more practical, and I thought about it really early in this thing, is I thought about the home as like a cocoon,
Mm.
right? So started thinking, what can I control? I can control the weeds around my house. I can control when I eat, so those are things that I can bring back to me. I can control what I eat, and it's harder now because we are at home all day, so I've lots of message from friends saying, I put on weight. I'm stoked that I've been dabbling with ways of eating that I've maintained. And
Mm.
now I've said, nah, F it. I'm gonna lose weight while I'm doing COVID and lose weight on lockdown, because that's me. But what I've thought about what this might give a lot of men, including myself, is this in our Western culture, we're not that good at having kind of rituals that
Mm.
help us be initiated.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think through groups and clubs and we do that, but I don't think we know we're doing that. Like we graduate, that still means something to us when you graduate, when you finish something. But I think we're being initiated into the next phase, and I don't know if we've really thought about how to initiate our men.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not
Mm-hmm.
through the rugby prism, how do you still be initiated to take on responsibility? And look, I'm certainly no expert in this, but I thought every now and then there's some things that give us the opportunity to, and COVID is that for me. So what do I mean by that? Well, I've spent a lot of time whinging in my podcast and on different podcasts about I kind of had it too easy.
Mm.
So what I mean by that is I have a lot of love from my upbringing, and that has served me kind of positively, but also it's bit me, right? I haven't been able to see the fire that burns within. I
Mm.
don't know how to drive that energy. As I've grown older, I've had a couple of things that have happened that have helped me process that. But that is the answer why I'm so drawn to people who've had a tough story and overcome it.
Mm.
Those are the people I talk to. Or in recent years, it's been more just like, okay, use it as a portal for just building friendships, like how we're a digital relationship, me and you, right?
Yeah.
And we're just going to continue this, and it will be so cool when it, whatever this flourishes into. Hopefully, us eating some nice meat together that we've hunted. That's
Yeah.
my dream. But when I thought about it like a incubator, like a cocoon, I thought, well, then it gives you the permission to say to yourself, what would I want to be after this? What do I want to be? Because
Mm.
it's not that I want to be just an editor or a creative person. Like that's just what I've found I'm good at, or that people would pay me to do. But this is a different question to what do you want to be. And the weird thing is, like, the caterpillar doesn't want to be the butterfly. It turns into one through that initiation.
Mm.
So I was thinking, well, what is that for us? And it might be a certain level of unlocking. You need to unlock. And I thought, I want to invest into understanding how that works, but not through a psychological point of view, almost like something split 50-50 between science and unknown.
Mm.
Exactly how we talk about hypnosis. Everyone's like, ooh, that's woo woo. And until Wim Hof did all those research, everyone thought he was full of crap too. So it's not really science driven. It's not unknown driven. It's not philosophy driven. I just want to know how to look really quickly at what I'm looking at,
Mm.
So, and I still don't know how I'm going to get there, but I thought when I interviewed that Dave Neath guy, the mental skills, because he does it for athletes and Israel Adesanya and all these people, and one of the things he said to me, because I asked him, why do you think I didn't do the Wim Hof method until like 4 years later? And he said, you probably didn't give yourself permission. I was like, whoa, what does that mean? Am I supposed to? Am I supposed to? And when I started thinking about it, of course the answer is yes. Even the biggest things in life, you give permission, like marriage or asking somebody out, or like huge things. You have to give permission for yourself. Do you, William, accept? And it's interesting how little we actually ask ourselves if we accept that. And that's another example of how weird it is that we have to talk to ourselves in a weird capacity, right? Why would we have to do that? But that's what that Dave Neath guy was saying. You got to give yourself permission. And if you can't find permission, sometimes you got to create a character that can have permission. And I was like, whoa, stop there. Okay, sign me up, because I want to learn from that. So, yeah, I start in May. Hopefully, lockdown's finished. It's the kind of one of the first things that I've kind of paid for. You can find a lot of stuff in this world for free.
Yeah.
Extract a lot of information from the podcast. But now I'm kind of hoping that my time with him as my coach, my mental hygiene coach, I'm hoping what that will do is frame it for me where I can take all of these learnings that I've had and just like funnel them into this, whatever that becomes, bro. And just whether it's doing some version of kind of, I don't know what it is, but wouldn't it be cool to be able to funnel everyone's story so that when you have time with someone and when someone says, how can I help? You're like, boom, here's all of these different methods, there's Wim Hof breathing method, there's self-hypnosis, there's NLP, there's asking yourself permission. And I just want to have a log of those and treat it like a pilot would, man, it's like, right, the engine's failed. Here's what you do. At the moment, you just like ask for help. So that means absolutely squat to all of us.
Yeah.
Put your hand up. No, you need to know a bit what's happening. Is it something up here? Is it something in here? Is it a mixture? And yeah. So the best I can do is physically and mentally strong, but I'm hoping to extract a bit more of that about what that means. It's bloody exhausting. I was thinking about it the other day, like I do the podcast and the goal is to have 1,000 conversations, and I'm like almost at 100 or something like that. Maybe reached 100, but haven't published a few, but I'm like, that's 900 or so to go. I'm like, man, it's almost like that own burden of sometimes I just want the car to drive itself. I don't want to have to know that there's all these ways of being. I don't want to have to know. And I think that's why men opt out of stuff. Why should I have self-responsibility? Why not just carry on? And I think it's emerging for me that the world needs everyone to operate as best as they can. With what you've got, I guess I'd add to that. We're not all built for the same thing, and that's awesome because, if we were, I think we talked about it, that it's weird how we're all different, in our last podcast. Some of us are tall, thin, fat. But what's amazing about that, some of us are old and young, and I didn't quite know what I meant by that, or I didn't know why that's a thing, because we seem to be at odds the whole time with it. You know, we don't like difference, yet we're all different. It's a really weird thing. But when COVID came, that only went after some vulnerabilities, but not everyone, So we were all marveled that it so far didn't go after the kids.
Mm.
And I just thought to myself, if we were all one, it'd be easy for a virus to wipe us out, because we'd be there for the taking. And I think
Sitting
that's how
ducks.
kind of awesome life is it backed us up. It said, man, I'm going to put so many variables in this that, even when you guys eat bats and do the wrong thing and have shitty hygiene in your markets, I'll back you up, and we'll have
Yeah.
all of these different things. And so that's happening. We're happy to be different now. We're happy to not have, and like I've seen hardly anyone triggered at the moment,
Yeah.
because right now we're stoked to be all in this together, and B, all in a slightly different scenario. So if you have anxiety because you're guilty for feeling good, you can do something about that. I asked Paul Wood, psychologist, a Kiwi psychologist, what should I do about my guilt, about feeling like I'm in a better situation than others? He said, well, first of all, try not to, no, he said, it can always be worse. So don't aim up. He said, aim down, and initially I took that as, whoa, you want me to aim down? But he said, it can always be worse. And you need to realize that. So I said, the other thing is, if you're in a good spot or a better spot, that's how you can help, is by realizing that, and where you can offer what you can, and so that help fuse it with the podcast. What can I do? What can we do? We can share time with people. We can do that, and we are doing that. You're offering content every week, as I am, and we're sitting here blabbering away to each other, but people will be listening and watching and enjoying that too. And we might not have the millions of dollars, but we're offering in our little way. So yeah, the confusing bit to me is, what do we do? What do we do if it continues? Because obviously we're seeing the economy break, and we're all preparing for this new wave of whatever the new wave is. For me, I'm like, man, when I come out of my cocoon, I've got to be stronger at not being vulnerable to being tied into an income. Got to be, And so I thought of, we talk about passive income and having multiple streams of income. Like, yeah, and I think I'll add to that, multiple streams of small income, so that, like relationships, if you've got one friend, man, that's a liability. It's a liability. They might just get lost, and then you got no friends.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not your friend; it's just they're lost. And it's up to you to be friend worthy and to go out there and make heaps of friends. And that's, so breaking it down simple, and just trying to attack as much as you can and get those skills. Because yeah, if you look into the the can of worms, whew, it's a tough one. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm just gonna have to breathe on that one. Gee whiz, you went to a
Sorry.
lot of places. That was good.
Oh,
Where I do want to land on that is the rite of passage,
Mm,
and you said there about, well, if you don't fit into the rugby or organised sports paradigm,
mm,
and I think part of the issue is that has become a rite of passage, and it's not fit with the effective tools to be a rite of passage.
correct.
Uh, the and that's where we have this, um, court. If anyone's been in a rugby team, they know what a courtroom is, or, and the bad things that go on there. I think about university and my first year of university, and second and third, and she's probably fourth and fifth. It wasn't probably until sixth and seventh that I was like, right, I'm here to do something.
Mm,
This has been your dream for since you were 12. Start freaking doing it. I guess it was that thing you talk about. I gave myself permission to go, hey, you don't need to finish that rugby game and go get drunk and get home at 4 a.m. and sleep all day Sunday, and then feel like shit and ashamed of yourself on Monday. You don't have to do that. You can be that person that does drink water, that does go home, that does then study tomorrow, that does go to the gym this week, that does try be that best person of yourself. I then also started attaching my dream of, well, why can't you play sevens representatively? And so, despite not living in Invercargill, I knew I was going to be there in summer. I messaged the coaches and said, hey, I play sevens. I want to come and try play for Southland. And, twice I played with them in the qualification period, but never made it to the nationals. And it was the same with Canterbury. I went to one of the tournaments, but then when it came to the actual nationals, didn't go. So it was like on the verge, but it was like I said, it was like that superhero, that persona, that part of me that I gave permission to stand for something, that meant that so many other elements of my life were better because of, I can't let that person down. It's me, but it's that part of me that that part of you is going to be bloody pissed off if you didn't train today. That part of you is going to be bloody pissed off if you didn't sleep today. And that's where I think having jobs and commitments gives you those persons to hold yourself accountable. And that's where when someone's in a rut and you're observing them, they often come to you with solutions. They come to you with the things they want to do, but they can't do that first step. And that's where we fall down, because it's so obvious to the observer what to do, but the person is stuck. And that's where you need someone with the skills to help them move forward. And that's where, like you're saying about rite of passage, the caterpillar doesn't know that it's going to be the butterfly. It doesn't know that. It's just eating. You've got a 2-year-old daughter too, the hungry caterpillar. It's just eating. He's hungry. He becomes a fat caterpillar, and then he goes into a cocoon, and then all of a sudden it's a beautiful butterfly. That's the same with doing the step. You don't know where the hell it's going to take you. Just like COVID, just like isolation, we don't know where it's going to take us. It's both scary and exciting. And I've been on this 4-day intensive, and that was one of the things that they said you should follow. When something's scary and exciting, you should follow it. Use that little piece of motivation to give yourself momentum down the track. Do that thing right now. When you have that motivation, use that motivation to make a decision. That means down the track, you've got to keep going. And that's what you said about the burden of the podcast. You gave yourself that opportunity. You had that motivation to say, I want to do 1,000 interviews. You started doing 1,000 interviews. Now you're in it. You're like, oh man, I don't feel like doing 1,000 interviews anymore. Hell, I can't let down old mate who's me, but old mate who wanted 1,000 interviews. I can't let him down, and I can't let all these people that have bought into shit. Will's doing 1,000 interviews, and so you've managed to create a snowball out of that little piece of motivation, that little piece of courage to take the step. And that's where something that's a true rite of passage, a true thing that expands you, that creates a butterfly, I believe we are missing. And that's what, in some way, I'd love to create. Again, I don't know how, but that's why I keep saying that that's what I want to create. I want to create this intensive men's retreat place that is wild and has axe throwing and archery and breathwork and yoga and
that's awesome
conversation. But yeah.
I didn't know you were doing that, but please, make it your burning desire, because it could be that way of you'll become who you need to become, right? Like the metaphor we were talking about with, it doesn't set out to become the butterfly, and it might not be obvious what we're supposed to do. Yes, you can have natural instincts, or you can have, I guess, luck in different areas, but at the end of the day, just like there's difference, that will reveal, I guess, like that Pokemon, who you're supposed to be, and having a way to incubate that is definitely how I would see something like a retreat, and just desperately, needed. And I think on top of that, we need to find ways that people can do it at the lowest barrier to entry, because it's a bit like I've been reaching out to a lot of the guests who I've had who do keynote talks, and that industry's just been kind of decimated at the moment, right? Just there's no, but the thing no one talks about is there's still a need for information to be given to workers. There's just a delivery problem. And so it should be the same with the insights, the ideas that you learn from the retreat. It can't just be like the idea is not good enough if it has to be that you've got to be there. So part of the burden on us is when you learn something, you got to find that right way of not hoarding the information and by being all like Illuminati about it, because it inevitably just eats you and will, in the wrong way. And I don't really know what that means, but I guess it's like those insights, hopefully they're simple enough that they just make sense. Then they're hard enough that they take practice to do. A little bit like the Wim Hof stuff. Like every day I'm doing this, well, most days I'm doing this bloody cold shower thing, and like it's hard enough to get myself to go in it, and I know it's never going to get easier.
Yeah.
In fact, the more used to it you get, you're going to start going in colder stuff. And I can't tell you I'm looking forward to it, but I can tell you that there's a certain amount of pleasure I get out of having done it again, So I don't really know, man, because people are like probably listening thinking, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's the worst idea, going in a cold shower ever. And it kind of is until you do it. And then it kind of makes sense. And from what I understand about the cold from Jason Sati is that what it's actually doing inside you is releasing a bunch of white blood cells that are going around looking to repair. So I kind of don't need to know any more than that, apart from that's happening, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what he also said is you get 6 days of benefits from it. And I'm like, okay, so in my mind, I'm banking up health, because if I'm doing it every day, I'm banking 6 days. Sweet. That makes sense. That's like when people said to you, one cigarette took off 6 years of your life or something, I remember hearing that at school, like 6 days per cigarette is how much you were taking off. And I was like, man, that's a powerful thought. That's a reason not to smoke. And, I think we need more of those examples. That's what these sayings don't give us. And I think that's why I'm going back to kind of like Moana and stuff. I think they're like slipping little things in for you, little ways of thinking about stuff, and I know it's not useful all the time, but definitely the structured way of living is not enough. It's not enough just to say, be better. I think even if they said it's okay to not be okay because you can't have hugs with people you don't really know, people would kind of get that. It's okay not to be okay because humans actually need physical interaction from people outside of their immediate family. If you could just get a scientist to say that's how it is, you'd be like, oh, okay, that probably explains a lot. Because if you haven't diagnosed what it is, you only left to imagination, and we know our imaginations mixed in with that little judge in your head. It's you.
Yeah. No, it's funny you were saying about one cigarette will take off this much of your life, but the one that I always tell my patients, and macular degeneration in the eyes is just like this parallel to everything. And I think we did talk heaps about macular degeneration and myopia, short-sightedness, which is what I got. But for that, there is think about 6 times greater risk of macular degeneration with smokers. It's basically what smoking does to most diseases, increases your risk by 6 times. But if someone stops smoking for 10 years, their risk of macular degeneration returns to someone who never smoked. And so as I said, macular degeneration is a parallel thing to many expressions of damage and oxidation and toxicity in the body. And if that can be better by not smoking, then so can so many other things. And so that's I love that one as well because it's so positive. It's a positive message for when I ask someone, why do you smoke? And they go, I have no freaking idea why I still smoke. I remember why I started smoking, but that's not me anymore. And I think that question as well might, I don't know, maybe I'm being romantic, but might prompt that person to go, why do I do a lot of things I do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer that 21-year-old retard suffering from peer pressure and an ego and an identity crisis, because I've come through the system and I no longer know where the hell I'm placed. I'm now 60 years old. Why am I still behaving on the patterns that I established as a 20-year-old? And that's why I think as well, what a rite of passage can break, especially when it's mentored by elders. It can be that opportunity. And that's what I think with where the rugby or the organised sport process can fit really well is when the coaches and the older cohort can be true leaders and can be true example setters. But that takes again that courage and responsibility from those people instead of still acting or trying to live out that 21-year-old ego that they have.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing that you said, about, where do we go? And you mentioned how you're lucky, but you're grizzled about this beautiful life full of love. And I'm the same, and I guess I've got to be careful what I wish for, because hey, I'm level 3, I still don't have a job. Level 2, I have a version of my job, but it's not my job. It's not until level 1 or we get out of this thing that I go back to normal, inverted commas. And I always had this, not always, for a while now, I've had this concept of, man, I kind of wish I didn't find this thing at 12 years old. I kind of wish that I was forced to just figure it out, to go, where's my passion? Where can I serve myself, serve others, and ultimately survive in this world? And like I said, I better be careful what I wish for, because that might be the new reality.
Yep. Well, you can bet that whatever happens, you'll learn the insights, or will be reminded of what it means to be adaptable. Like we have a positive connotation towards kind of change, or we love the word disruption at the moment, but we don't really want to be disrupted, because disrupted comes with all those extra risks, comes with you having to force yourself to change. But I thought of something when you were speaking before about not having a way to go through an initiation. And I thought, how weird would the concept be is people having mental breakdowns are trying to go through an initiation of change, but we keep stopping it. We keep giving medication, and come back to a level of whatever it is. And our body tells us, right? Our body tells us, our mind tells us, and we just got to kind of listen. But I know that's a weird thing because it doesn't really mean anything, but definitely I don't know, I kind of get stuck there, because if
And
you
who's
really
talking?
listen,
Who's talking?
yeah. Well, and people are screaming at the moment, right? Screaming unhappiness. I was thinking about, everyone's like, cool, what are you going to get from KFC? And I'm like, well, spend a moment thinking about the poor bastards who are stoked to not having gone to work at KFC for the last 4 weeks. And they're going to be ripped back into this world of, what? Delivering what to what? Another conveyor belt of, loading junk into junk. And look, I'll opt back into that because we all like a bit of stuff every now and then, but I love the fact that it hasn't been an essential service. And I hate the
Yeah.
fact that they've got the highest budget to market how essential they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bullshit measurement. And I haven't done it yet, but supposed to do a podcast with Jimmy Hunt. If those of the listeners and viewers who haven't come across Jimmy, it's worth checking him out. The day before lockdown, I said to him on Instagram, Jimmy, should we do a podcast? He said, yep, keen. I said, I'm keen to take your view on if this will help us change. And he said he doesn't think it will help us change. It has to get way worse. And I haven't podcasted with him yet because I know that it's going to come with some risk for me for just the darkness he's actually suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
That we won't change, that it's most likely that the 2 deaths or whatever it is not enough for us to hate it enough to change.
Yeah.
So we're most likely going to be back on that treadmill of fast food, not living to who you need to be, not having the initiation you could have, and it's a sad, sad thought, because that's when you start thinking about the true value of, who we are as people and sacrifice that people made so we can live. Well, I don't know. I probably romanticize, thinking about World War II and this idea that we have family members, we all do, right? If we're from this part of the world, that sacrifice their lives and their minds and their bodies, right? So that for what? So that come level 3, we could all drive through fucking KFC again. Like and I guess I should be a little bit easy on it because I've smashed a lot of KFC over the years. I guess what I'm saying, bro, is that I love the conversation about essentials, and I just think it shouldn't stop at calling things essential services. I'd love to have more conversation about essential meaning and essential ways of living and, just essential being.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of understand that the burden's on us as people to have to find those solutions, but I just think it's ridiculous that we have to almost start from scratch to be like, we're not the first ones to have gone through something like this. It shouldn't be this hard to have an initiation.
Yeah.
And if it has to be hard to go through an initiation, then we should know that straight up. We should know that there's going to be a certain amount of pain that will reveal something else.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's just like, nah, just live happy. And when you say that to people, it's not enough.
Yeah. You're saying about how Jimmy said he thinks for us to change, it needs to get worse. And the last time he had Jimmy on, he talked about his mushroom trip, and he went to a very hard and difficult place. And that's where I knew would get here with my Wim Hof experience that I did with Mark Kluwer. And I said about that diary that my great grandfather had written coming out to New Zealand. I went to that place and experienced those emotions of sailing halfway around the world, thinking that you're going to get to a destination and running aground, basically shipwrecking, nowhere near where you're supposed to be. So that the ship was supposed to go to Dunedin, but it ran aground in the Catlins. So now there's a spot in the Catlins called Surat Bay, after where this ship ran aground. And I had the imagery of shipwreck and the sheer feeling of fear and relief run over me. And to release that emotion and that feeling from me, there's a whole metaphysical idea of generational trauma, but as I said, it's a bit post hoc. I know the story, so am I just applying that? But then again, does that speak to that 4-year-old voice, that subconscious voice? That
you have to say yes.
you know,
Surely.
that's what picked it up. It was just a story, but then it created an emotional. It created probably a holding pattern. It probably created a way that I held myself up until that point. So again, I don't know what or why or how. I was just, you know, eating the green leaf, eating all the food to become the cocoon. I was just showing up to this Wim Hof experience, knowing that things were possible. I'd listened to Wim talk with Russell Brand 2 days earlier, you know, and they were talking about chakras and things that you might see, and I was like, what are they even talking about? Sounds interesting, and it's the same listening to Jimmy, like seeing the snake and fighting with the snake, and then his analysis of that was about love and his relationship and his relationships with people. It was just like we are fascinating and complex, and it's why the brain, you know, and I'm someone that's done an undergraduate with looking at the brain. Shit, I know nothing about the brain. And neither does the science. And that's why when it comes to, you know, people at MIT, the smartest engineers in the world, working with people from Johns Hopkins and you know, medical hospitals, why they can't figure out consciousness, why they can't figure out how to do AI and create an intelligent being, you know, it's probably maybe a good thing, but at the same time, it asks more questions than it approaches. Yeah, so it's
the best topic to talk about because, you know, and it's the topic I reckon is always talked about when you're around a campfire looking up at the stars.
Oh yeah,
you know, and I think we'd somewhat dip into this. We probably have another step removed now that we can't be with each other, right, in physical form. But there's something about that connection that we need to dip into. And yeah, I kind of love the fact, bro, that we might never know it, but it's there and it just prompts us, you know. It's like the cold shower again. I don't really need to know. I just kind of need to know it's working. And I think the more we can have, you know, like 10 of those in our lives, awesome, you know.
Yeah.
And if you can keep building it up and you share that one with you and share that one with me. Like one of the guests I had, Alia Buzhalova, she's a psychologist. Yeah. And one of the things she said is her grandfather told her that imagine you lived in a matchbox and that you had to enjoy it. And just sat there and I'm like, well, imagine living in a matchbox. That's interesting in itself. And then I thought, well, we are living in matchboxes because they're our homes and we can't leave these matchboxes. You know, I mean, we are leaving, but we're not supposed to be leaving with isolation. And, you know, that permission thing that we were talking about, I was thinking, how many people have sat down and said, how would I enjoy being at home? That's probably something no one said. Because there are ways to enjoy being at home. Like we enjoy coming home from work. So we've given ourselves a story there, you know, like, yes, I'm home. But being home, we've kind of said, oh man, this sucks. I'm on isolation. Yeah, it sucks because we also haven't asked if I could, how would I?
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thought. So yeah, man, I don't know. I'm probably a bit out of time because I love you, bro, but I love my wife too. And she said, get in the spa with me or you can sleep on the couch. But, look, I think, we've just got to try and make it. We've just got to try and understand that it's so complex and simple because it is so complex, but we can give ourselves the tools. And I mean, personally, that's why I really value the relationship we're building, right? Because it gives you a way to just exchange. And I don't know whether it's serving me or not to be blabbering on for hours and hours on podcasts, but I definitely feel like it feels like it is.
Yeah.
It feels like it means something. You know, when I look at outside of my bubble and I think about the amount of people that listen to Joe Rogan, it's all he does. You know, he's learned to just go with it and talk and be brave and not put up with certain levels of crap. You know, I definitely don't have those in my life. I'm not as strong as I'd like to be. You know, there's things that worry me that I know I should confront, but that's the thing with stuff. It's not obvious how to confront it.
Mm. Mm.
It's definitely not obvious because there's a risk to it all, right? There's a risk to being vulnerable.
Mm.
That really is, it's in a positive and negative. We're vulnerable. We don't want to be vulnerable in a health sense, but we want to be vulnerable in an emotional sense. They're both vulnerable, and there's a risk to them, and it might
Yeah.
backfire on you. And that's why I think we develop corporate things in KFC, because they're not vulnerable. They can sit behind shields.
Mm.
You know, I love the fact, even though my neighbour is a pilot for Air New Zealand and they're going through a tough time, but I love the fact that Air New Zealand got brought to its knees in 2 weeks. It's like, welcome to my world.
Mm.
We're all 2 weeks away from being brought to our knees, even you.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that the ones that have the most money for marketing and the awesome in-flight Peter Jackson videos. 2 weeks, baby. 2 weeks. And, boom. Then that wiped the shield off. And it's
Yeah.
like, what are you now? And that's their initiation. That's their pathway through. So who will they become? Will they become out the butterfly, or is it too hard? And so, yeah, man, for all of us, just incubate, think, who the hell, who, I don't know what the right question is. Who the hell should I be when we come out of lockdown? Who the hell would I like to be when we come out of lockdown?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe just, yeah, do what a butterfly does. What does a butterfly do? Sleep.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in there. Does anyone know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's a question. Mate, so I'd love for you to go join your wife in the spa. That sounds awesome. Where do people find you? Please blow my mind. Is that right?
That's the one. That's the one. So yeah, you can. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I always ask this question. I don't know how to sell myself. So okay, if you Google "Please Blow My Mind" podcast, most likely it'll pop up. I try really hard to have an audio version and a video version, and just kind of dabbling with that. But look, it's much like your podcast. Trying to have kind of authentic, real conversations. We're all in this. How do we brand ourselves, and how do we do this effectively, man? It's just like, I don't know, just talk, just learn, just be open.
Mm.
And yeah, you can find me on there. I think I do probably most of my stuff on Instagram at the moment because it's a bit more fun than Facebook. Facebook feels really kind of like you got to pay for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Instagram, I think it's at Please Blow My Mind. And yeah, thank you for another opportunity to come on your podcast. It's funny because our first podcast was supposed to be in 2016,
Yeah.
and then we waited to 2020 till you came on mine, and that was like 2 weeks before COVID. And then I sent you a message. I said, "Bro, sorry." But, because I really am. I will release those chats. I've got 4 other chats that happened pre-COVID. But we talk about rituals and initiations, and that gave me a different view, right? It meant I could be someone else. It meant I could immediately start looking for solutions. And for me, the interesting bit was my whole conversations pre-COVID were about expanding the thought,
Yeah.
take it out, kind of with the idea that modern society is sucking you dry, and you've got to push past that, blow your mind, expand your thoughts. Boom! As soon as COVID, it's contract, bring it all back in, close to home, And I still believe that's I've developed that thought into the cocoon,
Mm.
But it was funny because our chat was about blowing your mind, and so it'll serve its purpose when it needs to.
Yeah.
But just super stoked to finally catch up again with you. I've been
Excellent.
carrying a bit of what do you call it, guilt around from. It took 4 or 5 years for us to bloody catch up, and then I withheld the chat.
No, it's all good. It's cool, and you're right. It'll serve a purpose when the time's right, mate. One last thing. What would you leave us with? What serves you? What shows up in your life?
That's a good question. Probably probably look into your version of the unknown a bit more. You know, I have a real tension with when I speak to someone who's incredibly religious or spiritual versus someone who's, let's say, atheist or science driven. I find myself hearing more similarities than differences. And I don't know what to do with that information. And I don't know what to categorize it as, apart from there's an unknown element that we're referring to. And I think I would like to lean into that. I think it's kind of cool that if you're a parent, let's say, and there's less trauma than necessary, that it's built into you the capacity to love. That's an unknown quantity I don't need to know more about. And I'm sure there's more things like that, but we can't see it if we're trying to call it a name. So kind of be a bit more open to the unknown. It'll come with risks. It makes you sound weird like me. It also probably makes you sit on the fence a lot more than you potentially society would reward you to do. But there's something really cool about not knowing. And I guess the answer is we find it together. You know, as cheesy as that sounds like a Disney film, Moana, we do. That's at the end of the day, that's us. We are it. Regardless if there's afterlife or not. I've only got you, and you've only got me, and we've only got us. And that's weird because we hate most of us. You know? We hate it. You know, we hate our bosses, we hate our neighbors, we hate the person at the grumpy person who walks down the road, you know. But at the end of the day, man, we're all we've got. And kind of comforting. I guess I'll leave you with one more thing too. In my conversation with Alia, we pondered right at the end about this idea of you put a child to bed, and the idea is to not load them up with shit for the next day. And when's the last time you put the child version of yourself to bed? So it's a bit about the subconscious, but it's also a bit about who we're talking to. And we're obviously us today, but we were us yesterday, the child. And I love the thought experiment. If I'm going to put myself to bed tonight, what would I say? As if I was talking to another person. So it's a can of worms, that one, but try it, you know, even if you just say goodnight to yourself and one thing that you would set yourself up tomorrow to do. So, yeah.
Awesome. Go get in that spa pool, brother. Thanks so much.
Should I start taking my clothes off now?
No.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Cheers.